There are a few ballparks that we visited on the 1991 excellent adventure that have a history as long and as varied as Wahconah Park in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. Baseball at what became Wahconah Park goes back to 1892, but Wikipedia records the first team with a nickname playing there as the Pittsfield Electrics, which played in the Eastern Association in 1913 and 14. That team was named for the electric trolley cars, which were popular in the area at the time. The Pittsfield Hillies brought baseball back to the town from 1919 to 1930, and they played several exhibitions against the cross-state Boston Red Sox. Then another version of the Pittsfield Electrics came into being. This one was a nod to the burgeoning presence of General Electric in Pittsfield. At its height in the 1940s, GE employed more than 1 in 4 Pittsfield residents. These electrics played in the Canadian American League from 1941 to 1948, and they were followed in the same league by Indians and Phillies. In 1965, Pittsfield began a long run as a Double-A town in the Eastern League, with the Red Sox, Senators, Rangers, Brewers, and Cubs, but the Eastern League headed west to Williamsport, Pennsylvania in 1989, and the short-season Rookie League came in, the New York Penn League, with the Pittsfield Mets. The Mets were in their third year when we came in 1991, and they stayed another 9 seasons after our trip. The Pittsfield Astros played 1 more year there in 2001, but since then, professional baseball has not returned, though a number of teams in summer collegiate leagues have played there, and the Pittsfield Suns of the Futures Collegiate Baseball League now call Wahconah Park home. According to Today in History, the first college baseball game was played in Pittsfield in 1859, with Amherst defeating Williams by the unlikely score of 73-32. The two teams marked the 150th anniversary of that game in July of 2009 at Wahconah. The Fs got revenge that time around with an 8-5 win over Amherst. Lou Gehrig and Jim Thorpe played at Wahconah Park in the 1920s. Future Red Sox George Scott and Reggie Smith spent the summer at Wahconah Park in 1965. Carlton Fisk did the same thing 4 years later. Greg Maddux and Rafi Palmeiro played there with the Cubs in 1986. In 2004, the city got national publicity again for digging up a bylaw from the town ordinances from 1791. The ordinance prohibited the playing of baseball, among other sports, within 80 yards of its new meeting house. That was 48 years before Abner Doubleday supposedly invented the game of baseball in Cooperstown, New York. That same year, former pitcher Jim Bouton, who became famous for his book Ball 4, proposed to try to bring professional baseball back to Pittsfield. Wahconah Park would need improvements to bring it back up to changing professional baseball standards, but despite coming up with a plan that would have funded the changes without taxpayer investment, the city ultimately turned Bouton down. Bouton, who died last summer in nearby Great Barrington, Massachusetts, told that story in another book, Foul Ball, published in 2005. So while some of that history was yet to be written when we were there in 1991, Wahconah Park was still a 72-year-old stadium with one of the few remaining wooden grandstands in the country and a community with one of the longest baseball histories in the country. To which we responded by shooting a total of 4.5 minutes of video that day. Of that, 1 minute is spent at a campsite in West Granville, Massachusetts, where my whole family had gathered for a bit of a late 4th of July family reunion. Another 2 minutes is taken up with video from our visit with Sue's family, who had also driven down from Vermont for one of our few stops in New England. The remaining 1.5 minutes is at the ballpark, and even that is mostly taken up through a rousing crowd rendition of Take Me Out to the Ball Game. All I can say in my defense is that Sue and I have been traveling for more than 3 months without as much as 2 days spent in the same place. We had been far from home, and as much fun as our trip had been, and would continue to be, I think we were both longing for a day or two that felt normal. We would go on to another 80 ballparks after Pittsfield, but I wouldn't see my family again until the last week of the trip. So with apologies for the many things that we might have but didn't shoot that evening, here's a brief look at what we did see the night of July 6, 1991, when the Geneva Cubs came from behind to beat the Pittsfield Mets 4-3. Here we are at a campsite in West Granville or something, Massachusetts. And we're on our way to game number 98 in Pittsfield tonight. This is Wahconah Park in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, stadium number 98 on Sports Tour. as we move through our reunion weekend. Sue's mother and father made it down to the game tonight, and they met us outside the ball game. And Sue's dog, that's Daisy. And there's Sue's dad. Ooh, listen to this crowd. This is it for game number 98, and this is my brother and his wife Lucy, and we're glad that they came. And thanks for coming, you guys, all the way from Maine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wish the Maine guys were back in Maine.
There's a good advertisement for baseball in Maine.
Yeah, these small parks are great.
So that's it for game number 98. So long.